United States of America for a reason. He's thinking about Klal Yisrael. He's thinking about something bigger. And he thought about us. And he didn't just send the Sefer Torah. He came to deliver it. And for that we're grateful. We're very grateful. And with that, with Achinu Kol Beis Yisrael, with this connection that we now share, I ask Rabbi Yanklowitz to please address us.
Kehilath. It's really an honor for my wife Shoshana and I to come out here as representatives of our amazing Kehilath. Over 100 years old of tradition, this congregation. And I don't deserve any of this credit. I'm merely a middleman between Jews, middleman between Kehilaths. And I just want to thank everyone who's been a part of this. Rabbi Weinreb, whose leadership can't be matched. Rav Kates from the OU, who has also supported so greatly. Jeff Leb, who's been making the shit up from the start. Rav Krohn, who I've learned so much from, all of your Sfarim, your articles. Been a student from afar. Rav Blinder has been so kind and humble throughout this entire process of making this a meaningful experience for all. And for my own congregation, Kehilath Israel, the president, Steve Osmond, the officers, the board, all the congregants who jumped at the opportunity that this opportunity emerged for us. To thank my wife for her great support, and the Ribbono Shel Olam that could make this all possible. You know, when we were leaving Kansas City just yesterday morning, and we're walking with a Sefer Torah in the airport, no one had any idea. If you ever been to Kansas, you know what I'm talking about. Had any idea what we were doing. It was like alien. It was like an alien, you know, walking through Kansas with this big thing. And then we had a layover in St. Louis, and it was not much different. Maybe there was one person in the airport who came up and said, "Oh, I know what's going on." But as soon as we arrived in Newark, everyone is kissing the Torah. Everyone's dancing in front of the Torah. You know, we're waiting for like a little dance and some schnapps. There in the airport. It's a whole different thing. And Baruch Hashem, in a Medina Shel Chesed, in where we live, there's such a kavod for the Torah. I mean, when Jeff and the OU contacted Southwest Airlines, how accommodating they were. They had a special overhead compartment set aside for the Torah. I thought they were going to dance when we brought it on to the plane. You know, it was really a very special thing, and a very special country that we have this chus to live in. You're familiar with the word of the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe tells the story of a grandfather who's learning Gemara with his grandson, and they hear the cry of a child downstairs. And the grandfather closes his Gemara and goes downstairs and soothes the child. And then comes back up to continue the Seder and scolds his grandson and says, if the cry of another doesn't cause you to pause your learning for a moment, then your Torah is null and void. Your Torah is null and void. And so this was really the vort, that when the cry of someone in Klal Yisrael is happening somewhere, if we just continue learning, what are we doing? What is that? Did the Torah work on us? You know, and if so too that if a Sefer Torah is just sitting in the Aron and it's just sitting comfortably, and someone else needs a Sefer Torah, it's clear what should happen. We learn in Devarim of the mitzvah of Kesiva Sefer Torah that we should all write our own shira. And the Hersh famously says in his halachas of Sefer Torah that this applies to Sfarim as well. It applies to Sfarim since the ikar of Kesiva Sefer Torah is Limud Torah. That the collective mitzvah of being Marbitz Torah, and all of our life we should be striving to spread Torah in this way. And I'm incredibly grateful to this shul that we could partner in this, celebrate this mitzvah tonight, this mitzvah of being Marbitz Torah. When we saw how many Torahs our shul had, I asked myself a fundamental philosophical question of who owns these. Who owns these Torahs? Now, we know the halachas of ownership are very real. All the different ways of doing kinyanim and how we understand private property, chashin mishpat. It's very, serious Indian. But we also know from the Gemara in Brachos Lamed Hey, Amud Aleph, that at the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu owns everything. HaKadosh Baruch Hu owns everything. We can talk in this world about private ownership, this and that, but at the end of the day, everything is owned by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. My father-in-law, Rabbi Kenneth Stein, was quoted for me Tehillim Chav Dalet, L'Hashem Ha'aretz U'Mloah, that all is to Hashem at the end of the day. All is Hashem's ownership. That if we don't make a bracha on something, it's geza. It's like me'ilah. And we need to remember that nothing in a certain sense is truly our own. Coming back to this point of Gashmias. Nothing is truly our own. And all the more so with the Torah. It feels like with Davar Hashem, all the more so that we can't possibly own it on our, we can't possibly own Davar Hashem. We can't own a Torah in the deepest sense. And so I want to just get us to think a little bit about, we all own things that we don't need and others do. If we look in our closets, maybe half of the clothes we don't wear, someone else needs it. If we look in our cabinets, maybe half the food we don't even use, it's been sitting there for half a year, someone else needs it. And this is the typical Vort of Hanukkah, that when we give light, nobody loses. That when we do Chesed, everybody wins. And I really feel like my Kehilath has won in being a part of this. That whether it's Or Nigla or Nistar, that this is all infinite. This infinite light that really gets spread. You know, tonight when we say V'tein Tal Matar, the Malbim has a nice vort where he says Geshem is Tivi'i, and Matar is Hashgachi. That Geshem is the lashon of the natural, and the Matar is Hashgachi. It's really from Hashgacha of Hashem, and that Geshem is from below and Matar is from above. This is the month of Nisim and of Matar is this extra reminder to emulate a Kadosh Baruch Hu, Halachta B'drachav, to walk in the ways of doing good for all people. Geshem is a bracha of Shevach, right? Geshem shows up in the second bracha, but Matar is the ninth bracha. It's Bakasha, and that's ultimately what we're doing. It's a Bakasha for a much broader goal, for really the supernatural. And this is the ask, this is the vision, this is the dream that ultimately we have with Klal Yisrael. Is the dream of Matar, which we start davening for tonight. In the deepest sense that this Hashgacha of Hashem, that this bounty, this spiritual bounty, is not only supplied to us in all of our needs, but that we follow Halachta B'drachav to ensure it for others as well. You know, it's fitting that, as was commented upon, that the Shul's Ahavas Yisrael, that this is really what we're celebrating tonight. The idea of Ahavas, and that we take care of one another, and the needs are infinite. And there's one type of achdus that comes from machlokes, right? One type where Rav Kook famously teaches that Talmidei Chachamim Marvim Shalom Ba'olam. He says, what do you mean Talmidei Chachamim Marvim Shalom Ba'olam? He says Talmidei Chachamim, they're Marvim Shalom, they're Marvim machlokes, right? Ultimately, those who are of learning are increasing the machlokes in the world. That's the point. That Shalom has a foundation of machlokes. That the true learning, the true Torah, when it's underneath, then there's a real lasting Shalom. But there's also the achdus from Suris, the achdus that there's no machlokus involved at all. It's a very pure type of achdus, and that's I think what we're celebrating tonight. One of my great teachers, Rabbi Avi Weiss from Chovevei Torah, where I did my smicha, he always told us in our learning that there is one principle you have to have in order to be a Rav. He tells us this all the time. One principle you have to have, and he says it's Ahavas Yisrael. That if you expect to serve Klal Yisrael all day and all your lives, then the one thing you have to have is Ahavas Yisrael. And I always felt like there's three types of Yid. There's the Yid of Medinas Yisrael, the Yid of Klal Yisrael, and the Yid of Torah Yisrael. And I always felt like I was a Torah Jew. You know, I like Jews. I love it. I love Eretz Yisrael. But I felt like it's the learning that really gets me. And he always said, the Ikar is Ahavas Yisrael. And as I've learned in my short time in Rabbanis, I think it's incredibly true that at the end of the day, we have to truly love our brothers and sisters of Klal Yisrael. And that's really the basis of chesed and of learning and of building a Medina, ultimately. And this was the basis when we founded Ur the Tzedek, this Orthodox social justice movement, that the Torah be at the forefront of a global change, of Tzedek Chevrati. And that, like Sefer Yehoshua, that we learn that leading a spiritual war with the Aron in front. And that's what I feel like we're doing tonight. We're celebrating the power of Torah in society, the power of Torah in our communities. And so I want to just give the bracha that this Torah should be laying for decades to fulfill the mitzvah of Kriyas Torah, that this Kehilath should have many, many aliyahs for many, many years to come, that this Torah should be read and learned b'simcha and b'ava, and that together we may return to Israel and bring Gehilath.